I was talking to a lot of the parents, and of course the parents don't know all the things that their kids are doing here because most of the parents are living in China, and they're just sending the kids to be here by themselves. But the general response from when the missions director will ask them, how do you feel like your kids have changed? And most of the parents will say, I feel like the biggest change is that they've become more independent. Yeah, no, I think in the end, the main change that they go through is becoming more independent and developing more independent thinking, an ability for independent thinking. And even if they go back to China, I think that will accompany them. Because of the increasing numbers of Chinese students who were coming here and at an increasingly younger age, when you're a teenager, it's a very formative years, like they're very formative years of your life to be here as a teenager in high school, and then also most of the kids will go on to college because that's the goal, is to go to college. And to be here for 8 years in America, it's at that age, I think has a lot of impact, really. And and I'm filming these students for just the 4 years or the years of high school, but I think a lot of more development even happens once they arrive in college because they get a little older. And I think just the exposure and access to a lot of information and a lot of different ways of thinking and different cultures and different perspectives, I feel like will have pretty large impacts, and I hope it will have a large impact actually on, opening up China in terms of just being also thinking a little differently maybe, and thinking of how that might change the way certain things work. So yeah, I think it has a big impact. A lot of them will stay in the U.S. and they will bring, and most of these students come from families that want to strive to succeed, and a lot of them will end up in possibly leadership roles and in business and politics and possibly international relations, like Harry. So I think they will bring a perspective also to the U.S. that's I feel like beneficial to both sides. There's definitely, well, I don't know if it's just a misconception. I think there's a stereotype also of the Chinese, probably portrayed a lot in Chinese media about, and you read about that here in the US as well, of the uber rich Chinese students who are the Fuardai, the second generation wealthy Chinese kids, and they're here and they don't do any work, and they're just spending crazy amount of money, and that's definitely happening, and that is true, and that is I would say a percentage of the student body that comes here. But I do feel like and this is also why I didn't necessarily want to focus on that, even though that's very sensational and that's very very exciting and people and shocking. But I feel like the majority of the students who come abroad are not like that, and the vast majority, I would say, are still just really doing their best and trying to succeed, and they want to also they also know how much their parents have put into to send them abroad and pay for their education. So I think a lot of times they especially after this experience, they start to realize and start to understand that their parents have sacrificed a lot for them, and that makes them want to strive even harder. just everyone in China are so obsessed with this topic. They all, they would ask a lot of different types of questions, I would say, than the American audience, because the Chinese audience are so aware of what this experience is, and even if they don't understand, even for the ones that haven't gone abroad, they might be so curious, and I get a lot of questions about, is it better? What's the best age to come to the U.S. now? And that is, well, yeah, I know, exactly, very practical, and that is, and the level of details that, and in those questions, I think is way beyond what the American audience would ask. American audiences respond a lot to just, well, they're definitely responding to the wealth that's on display in especially like Stella's life. And I screened the film back in Freiburg Academy, and I think a lot of the students and the local faculty and communities were pretty shocked to see Stella's house, and suddenly they're realizing this is what their Chinese peers' lives are like back in China, utterly different from what they could have possibly imagined. And then another thing is just the way a lot of people do respond to, I think, some of the nuances in the way the teachers are responding to the Chinese students, and some people feel that there's just this sense of alienation and some cringeworthy moments. But yeah, so a little different between both sides.